George Santos story just keeps getting crazier. I honestly don't know how this sort of thing even happens nowadays, in light of the fact that everything is easily verified. I guess if you actually had a working press or decent opposition research. I mean, think about the opposition research they did on Donald Trump, which led us down the whole path of the dossier and all that nonsense. And yet nobody's bothering to do any kind of actual research on George Santos, who's telling us he went here, there, and everywhere. Horace Mann is the latest. He went to Horace Mann for prep school, only Horace Mann says they don't have a record. He worked at Goldman Sachs, although apparently Goldman Sachs doesn't have a record. I mean, this is wild stuff. And it shows you why no one trusts the media now, because the media totally failed to do any due diligence on this guy, and he got elected. So what happens now? We're on it. Hello, welcome to the program. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show, portions of which are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There's never been a better time to invest for the long haul in something like precious metals. So go to legacypminvestments.com for more today. Again, it's legacypminvestments.com. You can get a free investing guide. Today, I mean, wow, George Santos. This is just legendary stuff. I mean, where is Frank Abagnale? Remember him from Catch Me If You Can when you need him? I had to bring him on the show because we got to have a chat about this. How do you come up with so many falsehoods, especially nowadays when it's so much more complicated, I would think, to sort of reinvent yourself, if you would? It's like just on and on and on. I mean, he apparently lied about having Jewish heritage. He also said he was biracial, insisting he was both Caucasian and black. He apparently says he's gay, but apparently he used to be married. So is he gay or is he straight? Is he bi? I mean, who the heck knows with this guy? He said he worked at Goldman Sachs. He was an investment banker. Apparently none of that is true. Nobody can figure out how he has any money. He's reported that he has millions of dollars allegedly down in Brazil, but maybe that's not even real. I mean, some people are saying, well, okay, how did he get this money? But how do we even know he has the money? I mean, how do you know that that's not one big lie too? It kind of gets you thinking. Certainly I'm livid with the media that is supposed to, the local media certainly is supposed to actually vet him to a certain extent. One should also be livid with the other side. I mean, this Democrat that's saying that he can step in now. I'm sorry, buddy, but you really stink because you missed it. Your entire team missed it. How are we supposed to trust you either? I mean, what a bunch of fools these people are. It's peculiar because apparently people are saying, well, you know, it was not a very followed race, and that's one of the reasons why maybe some of this stuff slipped under the radar. It could also be the fault of not having enough in the way of local reporting, right? You don't have local journalists doing their job, vetting candidates in the way that we used to, because everything's been kind of outsourced to a bigger level and everything's all about clicks and thus the biggest stories. And so those local reporters that would have otherwise been doing their due diligence and maybe digging in and figuring out whether or not the guy actually had ever worked as an investment banker, well, they just either weren't employed to do that because of the changes within the industry, or they didn't have a desire to do it. Again, perhaps because of the changes in the industry that doesn't reward that local reporting. But then you got to say, well, what's going on with his competitor? I mean, what kind of moronic team doesn't do the basic, very basic due diligence and opposition research to say, hey, this guy said he did this and this and this and this. Maybe we should check. Maybe we should call Goldman Sachs and say, did you ever have an employee by the name of George Santos? Maybe we should call Citi, ask them. Maybe we should check on the college education. Did he really graduate from Baruch College? I mean, these are just the basics that should get done. These are things that you do, right? If you're going to hire an employee, whenever I've hired someone, like, you go and do that quote unquote background check, that gets done. And yet we have people running for public office where this is not getting done. Going back to how does this slip through the cracks? One, lousy media with a different value set. Two, a lousy competitor. I mean, the Democrat and his team clearly lack any wherewithal to just check the boxes. And three, a total lack of appetite on behalf of the national media to do anything about this. But that's to be expected. You know, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, you might wonder if this is the real Manchurian candidate that just really screwed up. It's interesting when you think about it. How does he have those millions of dollars? Was he paid off? Does he really have those millions of dollars? I think is still a fair question. These lies keep adding up. Let me give you some more that just came out today. I told you about the Horace Mann. You know, Horace Mann's a wonderful prep school, one of the top prep schools in the country. And he's saying he went there. I just say, like, how does that happen? Because wouldn't you have known anybody that had graduated with him? Wouldn't people say, that guy, he's running for Congress. He said he graduated with me from Horace Mann. I don't remember him. And you might talk to a friend and say, I don't remember him either. Well, then he claimed that 9/11 took his mom's life. But apparently another report said that she passed away of cancer in 2016. Now, maybe it was 9/11 related. We don't know. But everything is kind of just weird. So let's go through the list of lies, because it's worth knowing where we are. All of these claims or misrepresentations have come from him. For example, having Jewish parents who fled the Nazi Holocaust. That's apparently not the case. He said he graduated from Baruch College. Apparently there's no record of that. He said he attended Horace Mann, the prep school in New York. No record of that. He said he ran an animal charity, and that doesn't seem to be the case. He also said he lost employees in the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting, that he worked at Citigroup and also Goldman Sachs, that he owned rental property, and that his family firm managed $80 million in assets, paying him $750,000. But apparently the only real record they have of him working is some kind of low-level wage job. And then there's the 9/11 thing I just told you about with his mother's death. So this is like a honest-to-God bizarre story. And I haven't even gotten into the whole sexuality thing, because he claims he's married to a man. Nobody can find the marriage certificate to the man, but they did find that he had been married to a woman down in Brazil. I mean, it just gets stranger and stranger and stranger. So again, if you want to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole theory, here's one for you just to think about, because it could expose some of our vulnerabilities. Hold that thought before we get to the ultimate conspiracy theory. I do want to just tell you about something that is absolutely wonderful. One of the great sponsors of this show, one of the new sponsors I'm thrilled to have on board, and that's Rough Greens. Roughgreens.com. It's what I feed my dog every single day. It's just a supplement. So actually I give him his regular food, and I sprinkle this right on top, because this gives him all the things that he needs to really have a complete diet, all the digestive enzymes, all the vitamins, all the good stuff, if you would. Now, the food is good. You know me, I'm not going to skimp on anything, certainly not on the food that I give my dog, but this is what makes it even better. If you are someone who maybe is buying some of that cheaper food on store shelves, what Dr. Dennis Black, the naturopathic doctor who created roughgreens.com, calls dead food, then it's highly recommended you use this supplement, because this will help bring it all to life, so to speak, by giving your dog all those nutrients that he or she needs. So roughgreens.com, that's the name of it. It is the supplement that I use for Fluffy, and I'll tell you, it makes the food taste really, really good. He has never been a huge eater, but now when I serve his dinner every single night, boom, he's there mucho pronto. He just loves this stuff. It's like the secret sauce. So I highly recommend it. And the great news is Dr. Dennis Black has a special offer right now for friends of the show. Friends of the Trish Regan show can go to roughgreens.com and get their free trial bag of Rough Greens. So you're going to get this supplement for free. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Go there right now. I have a feeling your dog is going to love it, and you're going to love it, right? Because when your dog's happy, you're happy. At least that's been my experience. Roughgreens.com. Again, go to roughgreens.com, RUFF, greens.com today. Back to the ultimate, indulge me if you would, conspiracy theory here. You know, we talk a lot about Manchurian candidates. There's always this fear of a Manchurian candidate. Well, what if this was the Manchurian candidate just gone sort of wrong? Even if it's not, it does, I think, in some ways really show how exposed we are, how vulnerable we are as a society, because anybody can slip through the cracks. And you could have the Russians or the Chinese or whoever pay somebody to create what would be seemingly a great, perfect portfolio, right? They'd have the perfect resume and they'd waltz in and they'd go into office, but they'd be bought and owned by another country. I think that's just a reality we have to wake up to, because we're not even doing the basic background checks before somebody applies for a job. And then they get the job. And what do you do? Now, if this were a normal job in corporate America, you'd be fired instantaneously. But because we have a different kind of system, it doesn't work that way, right? The people elected him. So how do we undo a situation when they elected someone based on a whole bunch of falsehoods? And before everybody goes, oh, you know, Joe Biden's done this too. Joe Biden's lied about this, that, and the other. And by the way, he has. Don't forget I graduated in the top of my class for law school when he was like, I don't know, ninth or 10th from the bottom. I mean, he was not a good law school student. And I think that has increasingly become evident throughout his career. He has absolutely no respect, no regard, no appreciation, and no understanding, if you would, for law. But that aside, I mean, this guy, George Santos, he's special, right? Because it's not just where I graduated from in my class. It's like where I actually went to school, high school, college, where I worked, my lineage in terms of it's wild, wild, wild stuff. So I think it does show us the vulnerability that we have. One, in terms of being susceptible to outside influences, and two, the vulnerability in the system in that somebody gets in the door, they're elected by the people under all these false presumptions and a false resume, and then how do you get rid of them? So that's the question now. What do we do as a society? I mean, my first instinct is to toss the guy, right? Because, hey, if somebody applied for a job with me and said they had done this, that, and the other, and it turned out they hadn't done any of it, I don't think I'd have a lot of faith in them as an employee, let alone as a government representative. But again, the system doesn't work like that. So you have to go back to what we can do within the realm or the span of the system. And I suppose you could investigate him. They are investigating him. In fact, I think a Republican now is investigating him for any possible crimes that may have been committed. That's one avenue to go down. And then the other perhaps is a recall. I used to live in California, and I remember being in the media back when the Californian people recalled Governor Davis, and Arnold Schwarzenegger went in his place. That's another avenue to look at, and one that might be viable in this case. But it's bizarre, and I think it should be a wake-up call to all of us, and certainly to the media. For God's sakes, guys, do a little bit better job, and we need to value our local media more so that they're doing the things that they need to do. And then we deserve better. The American people deserve better in terms of candidates, because any which way you slice it, I think that the Democrat that was running opposite him is a bit of a moron, because this was the low-hanging fruit, right? This was the easy stuff. Just call and say, hey, do you have a record of George Santos ever having worked at Goldman Sachs? And if the answer is no, you explore it. Wow. I mean, this is just failure after failure after failure. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with that and a little preview of what's coming up on tomorrow's show, because we're going to talk about gold prices. Yes, portions of the show are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals, but I do just want to say we're seeing an increased appetite. Aside from the sponsorship, we are seeing an increased appetite in gold, and there's a very interesting analyst report that came out predicting possible gold $3,000 an ounce. It's trading around $1,800 right now. I think the reasons for that are actually pretty frightening when you get down to it. And so we need to get into that. It shows you how volatile the world is right now and how increasingly concerned people are about the direction of the sort of international challenges that we're going to face ahead. So we'll talk about 3,000 gold tomorrow, and think again about George Santos, because my gosh, if you can do that nowadays, what else can you do, right? I'll see you tomorrow.